Hello everybody, it's Foxy speaking and yes, this is a very special and rather important video. This is a video of special prayers to the royal family. Well, my belated but all my sincere prayers to the royal family following the very saddening death of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Also Prince Philip of Mountbatten, as oneself would certainly know, not surprisingly, who very, very sadly passed away on Friday morning of the 9th of April 2021 at the ripe old age of 99, nearly 100. He was very, very sadly beginning to decline in the latter years of his life, very sadly, having completed over 20,000 speeches and several thousand engagement practices and all that involving royal duties within the royal family. I have tremendous respect, I do say, for the royal family, and it certainly makes me proud to be British. Like, very, very proud to be British indeed. And I certainly cannot lie about that. And I certainly couldn't argue about that, but what could one say? And I was quite interested in Prince Philip, actually, but I did feel very sorry for him because of the traumatic childhood he he was embracing in his early years. I mean, he was born in Greece, born to a Greek-British family, but of course he left Greece as a baby, so he wouldn't have had a great many memories of Greece, but he could remember, stating back when he was, I think when he was in his 70s, he did say at one point he could only remember a certain amount of the Greek language because he left Greece as a baby, so he didn't have a heck of a lot of memories of the Greek dialect or the Greek language, only just fewer, not a heck of a lot. But his four older sisters, not surprisingly now all dead, they spent all their childhood growing up in Greece, and they would have known the Greek language, and of course many of them lived abroad, where they lived until they died. I mean, sadly, all his four older sisters are all dead, very, very sadly. It's not surprising because he was the youngest and he was born in 1921, so it's not surprising that all of his sisters died before he did. Four older sisters and he was the youngest of five, the only boy and the youngest. I mean, none of his siblings lived past the age of 90. He was the only one who lived past the age of 90. And certainly his parents didn't even live to 90, let alone them. His parents only lived into their very early 60s to early 80s. I mean, his mother was 84 when she died, and his father was 62 when he died. Very sad, but it's just the way it is. When he was nearly 100, so quite impressively, he lived considerably longer. I mean, there are people out there who do live considerably longer than their parents, and that's certainly not a fantasy. It's an actual fact. It's been proven. You know, it's actually been proven many times. No. No, but it was very sad because his mother, I mean, she was fine. Even when his sisters came around, his mother was absolutely fine. But it was as when Prince Philip was only a young child, she came down with a terrible case of paranoid schizophrenia and had to actually be locked up. The very poor lady. I mean, it's very sad when people become very schizophrenic and, well, crazy within having schizophrenia. It just does such awful, awful things, schizophrenia. And it was just traumatic for poor young Philip, back in his childhood, of course. You know, I mean, he didn't even get to grow up with his parents, which was really sad. But you know, after a troubled childhood, he met this wonderful young girl, and one young girl who happened to be his future wife. That was then the future Queen Elizabeth II, who was back then Princess Elizabeth, whom they met they were very, very young when they met. She was only a teenager when she met him. Of course, he was nearly 5 years older than she is, because she's going on for 95 now, as well everybody around the world would know. Of course, her age is very hard to believe as much as mine is, but, yes, they had a big age gap, but at first they were just very close friends, but before long their relationship became far, far deeper, to the point where it was a romantically involved relationship, well, a romantic connection between the pair of them, if you could put it in that contextive way and such. Yes, and then after the war ended in 1945, they got together. And then within about, well, I could be wrong, but within 2 years after World War II, 2 years, in November of 1947, the Queen and Prince Philip happily got married. It was somewhere in Salisbury, I think it was, not too far from Salisbury, because I remembered my great-grandmother actually did, from a far, far distance away, saw them getting married. That was Anne's late mother, my late great-grandmother, Naomi, the mother of Anne, my grandmother, who's still alive actually today, very, very shockingly to some of you. I'm guessing you thought she'd be dead by now, but no, I've still got both. But of course, yeah. But he had led quite an interesting life, lots of engagements, lots of royal duties. He did retire from royal duties when he was 96, on the 2nd of August 2017. But despite retiring from royal duties, he attended 2 royal weddings in 2018, despite having undergone a hip operation, which a lot of us thought he'd actually die from surgical complications following hip surgery, but thankfully he survived it. And but I think after the surgery, I think he did begin to decline, because seeing him after his hip surgery at 96, nearly 97, I noticed he was really aging, especially at Harry and Meghan's royal wedding in May of 2018, which I saw personally on the television. And Prince Philip, a very, very gaunt and really unwell-looking man at that point. I mean, it was very sad. I mean, he went from being a handsome boy to an exceptionally strikingly handsome young man to a handsome middle-aged to fairly elderly, still quite handsome, actually. Well, beyond exceptionally good-looking, even into his 60s, 70s, and even when he was in his 80s and 90s, he was still really quite a good-looking man. But then after his hip surgery, in the latter few years of his life, I wouldn't have considered him a good-looking man. I would have considered him to be incredibly gaunt and very ill-looking. And he was actually having a few health problems in the latter few years of his life. Sometime after his hip surgery, he really began to go very, very downhill, poor man. It does happen, sadly, with old age, but what could one expect? It was very sad for the royal family to see, and a big worry for them too, but, and also 2 years before he died, he was involved in a dreadful car crash, which he eventually said he was absolutely terribly sorry for, but then he gave up driving because he didn't want to be a risk to others following the car crash, because he actually could have killed the people he'd crashed a car into. Dangerous, awful. No. He was really quite an important man, actually, Prince Philip. No, very, very important, actually. He was known, actually, to be very, very clever, Prince Philip. I'm sure many of you know. He was quite funny in a way for a man, and I'm sure he was a very funny grandfather to his grandchildren when they were younger. but he was, in a way, considered to be quite outspoken. I think because he would use naughty words on and off. Oh no. What would the Queen say about him using terribly naughty words? Yes. No, he did many important royal engagements. The coronation he was very much involved in 1953 of June, with Queen Elizabeth, 1 year after she became the Queen, his wonderful wife, as you could say, who has done many, many important things, and she means everything to the world. I could tell you, to be truthful, the Queen, Prince Philip's wife, well, the late Prince Philip's wife, really means everything to the world. I could tell you, really she does. I could tell you. No. But of course, it's very, very, I mean, I know, although he was 99, it's still very, very sad, and not only is England still mourning the loss of Prince Philip, but the whole world, very sadly, is mourning the loss of Prince Philip. But in this video, I really just wanted to say my hugest thanks to many of you who gave condolences to the wonderful, wonderful country of England, as well as in referral to the whole of the length and breadth of the United Kingdom. Thank you all for your condolences for those who do not live in England, particularly when you gave it to me. I mean, the condolences you gave me were just wonderful over particularly the country I live in. It's just absolutely fantastic, and I am largely and tremendously thankful, well, specifically thankful, not to mention, over the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful condolences some of you have given. And I really, really, I mean this, I'm saying this in a heartening way. Knowing the royal family being based in England, it just makes me very proud and extremely grateful to be British. Yes, I could tell you. Yes. Well, I wanted to give this very special video message of prayers to the royal family, as they are really going through a dreadfully terrible and difficult time following Prince Philip's death, particularly the Queen, who is shattered by the loss of her husband of nearly 74 years. You know. And of course I was absolutely shattered when Edmund, my late grandfather, passed away, which was, believe it or not, last year. Which I think, guessing some of you would have thought he'd gone years ago, but no, he only went last year. Poor man. And poor Prince Philip. Well, of course, he was... Oh, No, but my special message of prayers to the royal family, and my special message of thanks, profound and utter thanks, to the world for giving their most wonderful and sincerely gracious condolences over England and the length and breadth of the United Kingdom. Thank you all indeed for watching. Goodbye, another time. From Foxy, all condolences to the royal family.